Bankulli, that's my name.
Bankulli, I'm Steve.
Yeah.
Brian.
Okay. So it's called Music of Resistance.
Yeah.
You went all over the world.
As a
Yeah.
musician, one of my greatest influences
Mozambique.
comes from
Yeah, you look
Nigeria.
very young there.
What, you say you look old now? Well, I'm going.
No, you look cute
And in
there.
Colombia,
You need I'm not cute now.
through his
Jesus.
music, he
Finally, the
confronted
insult.
government corruption, multinational corporations, and police brutality. In a career that spanned 4 decades, he recorded over 50 albums and performed frequently in concert.
Before and after.
When Fela died, many of his fellow Nigerians
look
came to
cute,
pay their respects. His youngest son,
Oh, that's
Shehu,
you.
was
Yeah.
only 14 when he
friend.
decided to save the band and carry on as its leader. 11 years later, Shehu is releasing his first album with the last of Fela's great bands, Egypt 80.
So you met
I
Baba.
wanted to know
Yeah.
what kind of a person
I think it should. I
would
think it's
try
in
to
the
follow
like
in
90s.
Fela's
Yeah.
massive
Yeah,
footsteps.
he was retired now.
Yeah, well, he was 80 when I met him then.
Fela
So he must be
Kuti was
90s
undoubtedly
now.
the most significant musician
That's impeccable.
to have ever come out of sub-Saharan
Okay.
Africa.
Yeah.
Now let's talk now. How long have you been doing music?
Myself.
Let me rephrase it.
Yeah.
How did you get mixed up with music?
Well, I mean, for me, music. My mum and dad were music fans, big music fans.
Okay, from
And I
which,
did
from which country?
Well, my father's from India. And my mother was very kind of white working class English, you know. So I was brought up on twin things: Indian classical music, classical folk music, and also rock and roll. You know.
Okay.
So it was like Little Richard and Ravi Shankar.
Wow.
Which is quite a dynamite thing to be brought up on, you know.
So you grew up in India? And
No,
you
I grew up in London. I grew up in London.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you're always in touch with your Indian background?
Not particularly, no. It's always a distant thing for me, and in a way that's kind of, I got a different, my musical influence, my dad was like, oh, this is not for you won't understand it.
Okay.
But if you're growing up with the sounds of the sympathetic sitar strings, that drone, every Sunday the whole house is throbbing with the drone that just goes inside you. And even now, if you put it on now, I will stop talking and just go like that.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's that deep, a subconscious thing. But I was never schooled in it academically in any sense, or in Western music either. I
So
just
you
needed.
played piano?
No, I'm a guitarist. I just needed to play guitar and make a lot of noise. So I'm old enough to remember what we call punk rock in Britain, and that was my first thing. And then it was like punk rock, and then I discovered funk and Sly Stone, particularly funkadelic, early hip hop, acid house, and in the middle of that, in the mid '80s, I think early '80s, first heard Fela Kuti, Black President.
Black President. Okay,
Yeah.
hold on. This is your band, right?
Yeah,
The Asian Dub Foundation.
that's right. Yeah.
When was this album?
That's 5 years ago. And we're just about to release a new one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw you guys rehearsing.
Yeah. We're about to release our 9th album.
Okay, now, the next question is, how did you get connected to Fela's music?
Well, I think in the early 80s there was a big interest in what we called, for want of a better term, world music. Right?
Okay.
Like in
Which
the early
I
80s,
think
I
they
hate
need
that
to,
term, yeah.
They need to disregard that word.
It's a dreadful term.
So disrespectful too.
Yes, it is, and also it was done by upper middle class, sort of still with a colonial mentality. But if you were selective, the interest, you could select what was good that came out of it. Now, I mean, the two great artists of the early '80s that people started to hear about was Fela.
Okay.
And a bit later, the Pakistani singer Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan are the two that I remember most that actually were in amongst this jumble of mediocre music. Those
Okay,
two
let's
shine.
stick to Fela.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Fela himself is a lot to study, anyway.
Absolutely. But you see, the thing is, in the early 80s, there were certain groups like new wave, post-punk, punk groups, we called it then, that started incorporating, or attempted to incorporate Afrobeat, like Talking Heads, for example. Were the first group that I remember really saying, "Oh yeah, we're incorporating our music and mixing it up with Afrobeat." Right, so but it was still very underground. Do you know what I mean? And Fela Kuti was also, if you were say into reggae, really heavy reggae, really political reggae, like Burning Spear or Linton Kwesi Johnson, chances are you would have come across Fela Kuti. Because the other thing about Fela Kuti, which is very important, was militant opposition music. It was revolutionary, rebel music.
Talking against
Yeah.
bad governance,
Absolutely, yeah.
you know, military rule.
Yeah, and so this was very inspiring, especially for people of my generation and the people that formed the band. You know, everybody, the original members of Asian Dub Foundation, the older members, myself, the bass player, the DJ, we're all fella fans. You know, when we met, we're all fella fans, along with
Did you
Lee
ever
Perry
meet?
and-
Did you ever meet Fela? before
No,
that?
never met Fella. No,
But
I
you
never
met-
saw him live either.
You met his son.
I met his son. Yeah.
Who? Which one of the son?
Sharon, I met. Yeah.
And you actually filmed him in your
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I went.
documentary.
Yeah.
How was the vibe? I mean, the mood when you met him.
Wow, I mean, imagine the first time in Lagos for anybody from the West. You know, even though I've been to India or something like that, it's still
What year was that?
2009.
Wow.
2009. So we're talking about 11 years ago. Yeah. 11
And
years ago.
how
Maybe
did it go with
2008 actually. Yeah.
How did it go with him when you? I mean,
He was fantastic, man. He was such a great guy. He was very warm, hospitable, full of information, full of perspective. I think I learned one hell of a lot from Sharon. I learned a lot. As much as someone like me could, I think. You know, second, third hand, you know, about the history of Afrobeat, the particular conditions under which Fela made his most rebellious music and his rebellious stances. You know, Sharon showed me, there's a monument to his mother in the Calcutta Republic
Yeah.
where she was thrown out of the window,
yeah.
by the military
by the
government.
military government.
Yeah, you know, and then other things like, so I learned all about that particular condition and also how they were persecuting him then as well.
Don't use that word persecute. Can you look for something more disdain?
Repressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, repressing. I mean, still then, Shayon was being intimidated and repressed by the Nigerian government.
Yeah. Back
When
then.
I was there.
Oh, really?
When I was there. Oh yeah, now Shayon reckoned that what they'd done is they tried to intimidate him and his crew in the Calcutta Republic
Wow.
by giving licenses for Christian churches, you know, sectarian Christian churches, to basically shout. Like he said, he had 9 surrounding him,
Wow.
and they're basically shouting all night. You are a sinner. You are, you know. And it was deliberately designed to
But I think
intimidate Sharon. That's what he thought.
it's a bit changed now because you know.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't have to put up with that.
The growth of democracy to some extent, which is still very, you have mediocres doing politics out there in Africa. You know, you find a lot of people. It's now game of numbers, money, and
Well, it was then.
being able to grab power and stuff. You know.
Well, we
one thing
interviewed someone.
one thing I want to talk about is because you're one of maybe one of those people that I've met that have information about Fela's music from a perspective of someone that was a fan and someone that was an actual musician.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
we're gonna take this interview to the next level.
Well, I'll
I
tell
don't
you-
want you. I don't want you to say too much.
Okay, no,
So,
whatever you want.
You know what?
Yeah.
Because there's something I'm working on that I'm gonna get you on.
Okay.
So guys, meet Steve for the last time. Not for the last time per se. This is his band, and they just released this. Go and check it online. You know, Google, stream, download all their music. You know, he's a good guy. Thank you very much, Steve.
Yeah, thanks.
And I'll talk to you after
Yeah, well,
this call.
listen, exchange contacts if you want to know anything more about that meeting and stuff, because I think there's some musical controversies actually about the origin of Afrobeat.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
about
We're gonna talk about it.
yeah. And I'll tell you, they're big on it. If you don't say the wrong thing around that crew,
Okay.
don't say that it all came from James Brown, and they'll
No,
bash you over the head.
But that's disrespectful, you know.
Well, yeah. Well, you see, you know what I mean. You say this is actually what's put about in Britain.
Don't worry, we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's spook them.
There you go.